Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. Russell Donovan stared at the San Francisco skyline from his office window, a genuine smile crossing his weathered face as he hung up the phone. 25 years of building his wealth management firm had finally paid off. The Peterson account, worth 8 figures, was officially his. At 52, retirement was no longer a distant dream, but an approaching reality. The photo on his desk caught his eye, him and Vanessa on their 20th anniversary in Hawaii, 5 years ago. Her smile hadn't reached her eyes even then. When had that changed? When had she stopped looking at him the way she used to? Russell loosened his tie as he packed his briefcase. Tonight will be different. He'd surprise Vanessa with the news and the reservations at Quince he'd been unable to get for the last 2 years. Perhaps they could recapture what they once had. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily, their 19-year-old daughter. "Don't forget to transfer my tuition payment, Dad. Love you." Russell smiled. At least one relationship in his life remained uncomplicated. Lily was thriving at Stanford, following her dream of becoming an architect. The tuition was steep, $60,000 a year plus expenses, but seeing her flourish made every penny worth it. As he drove his Tesla Model S home through the evening traffic, Russell reflected on his marriage. 25 years with Vanessa. They'd met at Berkeley, both ambitious and driven. She'd abandoned her law degree when Lily was born, a sacrifice she'd reminded him of with increasing frequency over the years. The grand Tudor-style house in Presidio Heights was dark when Russell arrived home, except for the kitchen light. No surprise there. Vanessa's charity events frequently kept her out late. He'd hoped tonight might be different. A note on the refrigerator read, "Working late with the Foundation Gala Committee. Don't wait up. V." Russell poured himself 2 fingers of Macallan and wandered through the quiet house. Their housekeeper, Maria, had left everything immaculate as always. He paused by the photographs lining the hallway, a visual timeline of their family. The early pictures showed genuine happiness. When had Vanessa's smile become practiced? When had Lily started to resemble her mother, not just in looks, but in that careful, measured expression? Upstairs in his home office, Russell settled in to review some client portfolios. Opening his laptop, a notification caught his eye, an alert from their joint credit card account. A $12,000 charge at Cartier today. Another gift Vanessa had bought herself. Fine. The Peterson account would more than cover it. But something nagged at him. Vanessa had been shopping a lot lately. Clothing, jewelry, spa treatments. He clicked through their accounts, calculating. Over $50,000 in personal expenses in the last 3 months alone. His phone rang. Nelson Hargrove, his oldest friend from his Navy days. "Russ, you old sea dog. How about that fishing trip next weekend? Colorado's rainbow trout are calling my name." Russell smiled. "Nelson, perfect timing. I need a break from the city. Everything okay with you and the Ice Queen?" Nelson had never warmed to Vanessa, a feeling that was entirely mutual. "Same as always," Russell said, not wanting to examine the growing distance too closely. "I'll see you Friday." "And Nelson?" "Thanks." After hanging up, Russell found himself scrolling through photos on his phone. Pictures of Lily's move-in day at Stanford last fall. Vanessa hadn't attended. A migraine had kept her home. In fact, Vanessa had been absent from many family events lately. Working late, charity functions, shopping with friends. Russell opened his calendar to add the fishing trip and noticed something strange. The tuition payment to Stanford was due next week, but according to his records, he'd already made the payment for this semester 2 months ago. He dialed Lily. "Hey, Dad." Her voice sounded artificially bright. "Lily, about the tuition payment." "Oh, that. Mom said you guys were switching payment schedules because of tax stuff? She's handling it this semester." The words came out in a rushed tumble. "Did she? I don't recall discussing that." A pause. "Well, that's what she told me. Listen, Dad, I gotta run. Study group for finals." Love you. The call ended too quickly. Russell stared at his phone, unease growing in his stomach. Lily had always been a terrible liar. Like her mother, her voice rose half an octave when she wasn't telling the truth. He opened his banking app and reviewed the last tuition payment. It had gone to Stanford, certainly, but the transaction details showed it was for the previous semester, not the upcoming one. Where was the money for the current term? Russell poured another scotch and began reviewing all their accounts. Credit cards, investment portfolios, their joint checking and savings. On the surface, everything appeared normal. But as he dug deeper, he noticed small discrepancies. Transfers to accounts he didn't recognize. Withdrawals in increments just under $10,000, the reporting threshold for banks. By midnight, Russell had identified over $200,000 that had moved through their accounts to unknown destinations in the past 6 months. Something was very wrong, and Russell Donovan, the man who built his reputation on meticulous attention to financial details, was determined to find out what. Chapter 2: Shadows and Whispers. The next morning, Russell called his office claiming a family emergency, then drove to Stanford instead of heading to work. He needed to see Lily in person. Something didn't add up, and his daughter's sudden evasiveness suggested she knew more than she was saying. The sprawling campus was busy with students rushing to morning classes. Russell waited outside Lily's dormitory, watching young people hurry past with backpacks and coffee cups, their futures still unwritten. Lily emerged at 9:30, but she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, mid-40s, expensively dressed in casual attire that probably cost more than most people's formal wear. His hand rested on Lily's shoulder with familiar ease. Russell remained in his car, observation skills from his military days kicking in automatically. The man was laughing, keys dangling from his fingers, keys to a Porsche Taycan that Russell recognized with a jolt. It was the same electric blue color as the one he'd custom-ordered 3 months ago, but rarely drove. The man hugged Lily goodbye with the comfortable affection of someone who had done so many times before. As the Porsche pulled away, Russell snapped several photos with his phone, capturing the license plate. Instead of approaching Lily, Russell drove to a coffee shop off campus and called his firm's in-house investigator. "Byron, I need a favor." Discreet, off the books. Russell forwarded the photos. "Find out everything you can about this man." With that in motion, Russell drove back to San Francisco and parked near the headquarters of the Presidio Heights Preservation Foundation, Vanessa's pet charity project. From his vantage point, he could see the foundation's offices, but remained invisible behind tinted windows. At 1:30 p.m., Vanessa emerged from the building with 2 women Russell recognized from their social circle. They air-kissed goodbye before Vanessa walked to her Mercedes GLE. Russell expected her to drive home, or perhaps to one of her usual shopping destinations. Instead, she drove to the Marina District and parked near a boutique hotel overlooking the bay. Russell followed at a distance, watching as she entered the lobby with the practiced confidence of someone who had been there before. He waited 15 minutes before entering himself. The young man at the reception desk smiled professionally. "I believe my wife came in a few minutes ago," Russell said casually. "Vanessa Donovan?" She texted that she left her sunglasses in the restaurant yesterday. The desk clerk's expression shifted subtly. "Oh." Mrs. Donovan went up to the Bayside suite. "Would you like me to call up?" "No need to disturb her," Russell said smoothly. "I'll text her instead." "This hotel is lovely. Do you host many events here?" "We do, sir. The foundation Mrs. Donovan works with has booked our ballroom for next month's gala." "Excellent. I'm sure it will be a spectacular event." Russell turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Who should I speak with about making a substantial donation to the foundation? My wife handles most of our charitable giving, but I'd like to surprise her." "That would be Mr. Riker. Preston Riker. He's the foundation's development director." The clerk lowered his voice conspiratorially. "Between us, sir, he and your wife have been working very closely on the upcoming gala. They're quite dedicated." Russell maintained his pleasant expression while his mind processed this information. "Preston Riker. I'll be sure to contact him. Thank you for your help." Back in his car, Russell's phone buzzed with a text from Byron, Preston Riker, 45. real estate developer turned nonprofit fundraiser, divorced twice, financial troubles behind the polished facade, tax liens, lawsuit from investors last year. More details in your secure email. A second text arrived from Nelson. Fishing trips ago. Bringing some new toys you might want to see. Military-grade surveillance equipment from my security firm. Perfect for catching the big ones. Russell stared at the hotel's elegant entrance. The pieces were coming together, forming a picture he had never wanted to see. His wife and this man, this financially troubled developer, were planning something. And somehow Lily was involved. That evening, Russell returned home before Vanessa for the first time in months. He moved through the house with new awareness, seeing it as a crime scene investigator might. In Vanessa's home office, her computer was password protected, but Russell knew her habits. She used the same password for everything, Lily's birthday and their street address. Access granted, Russell searched through her emails, browser history, and documents. Most were innocuous: foundation business, correspondence with friends, shopping receipts. Then he found a folder labeled Malibu Project. Inside were architectural plans for a beachfront property, communications with contractors, and a purchase agreement. The buyer was listed as an LLC, New Beginnings Holdings. Further digging revealed New Beginnings Holdings was registered 6 months ago with Preston Riker as the primary stakeholder, and Russell felt his blood pressure rise. Vanessa Donovan as co-owner. A property transfer deed showed they had paid a $500,000 deposit on a $3.8 million Malibu beachfront home. The source of funds was clearly documented. Wire transfers from an account Russell didn't recognize, but with familiar amounts matching the unexplained withdrawals from their joint accounts. Russell was calculating his next move when he heard Vanessa's car in the driveway. He quickly closed everything, ensuring the computer returned to exactly the state he found it. Vanessa entered looking flushed and vibrant, more animated than he'd seen her in years. Her smile faltered momentarily when she saw him. "Russell, you're home early. Thought I'd surprise you." He kissed her cheek, noting her subtle flinch and the unfamiliar cologne that clung to her clothes. "How was the foundation meeting?" "Productive. The gala is coming together wonderfully." She set down her purse, careful to keep it close. "I'm exhausted, though. I think I'll take a bath before dinner." "Of course." Russell smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "Take your time. I'll pour some wine." As she climbed the stairs, Russell's phone buzzed with an email notification. Byron had sent detailed financial records for Preston Riker: bank statements, credit reports, investment portfolios. The man was leveraged to the hilt, with creditors circling like sharks. One document caught Russell's attention: a loan application Riker had submitted 3 months ago, using the Malibu property as collateral. The projected source of repayment funds: expected inheritance/settlement, approximately $4.2 million. Russell's inheritance from his parents had been modest. The only settlement he could imagine would be from a divorce. Their prenuptial agreement entitled Vanessa to half of all assets acquired during their marriage, an amount that would indeed be close to $4 million with the Peterson account. The pieces continued to align. Russell now understood what was happening, but many questions remained. How long had this been going on? What was Lily's role? And most importantly, how had he been so blind? Russell closed the documents and poured 2 glasses of wine. He would play the oblivious husband a while longer. Information was power, and he needed every advantage before confronting the betrayal that threatened to destroy everything he had built. Chapter 3: The Revelation. For the next week, Russell maintained his routine while gathering intelligence. He installed Nelson's surveillance equipment throughout the house: tiny cameras and microphones in common areas, keyloggers on Vanessa's devices, and a GPS tracker on her car. The evidence accumulated rapidly. Vanessa met Preston Riker almost daily, sometimes at the foundation office, but more often at the Marina District Hotel. Their communications, now accessible to Russell, revealed the full extent of their betrayal. They had been involved for nearly 18 months. The plan had evolved from a simple affair to something more calculated. Riker's financial troubles had accelerated their timeline. They needed Russell's money, and they needed it soon. More disturbing was Lily's involvement. Text messages between Vanessa and their daughter showed Lily had known about the affair for months. Initially reluctant, she had gradually been won over with promises and gifts. Designer clothes, a new car, and the ultimate bribe. A guest house on the Malibu property where she could live rent-free after graduation. Russell's heart broke reading the exchanges. His daughter had chosen sides, swayed by material temptations and her mother's emotional manipulation. Friday arrived, the day Russell was supposed to leave for his fishing trip with Nelson. He made a show of packing his gear and kissing Vanessa goodbye, noting how she barely waited for the door to close before reaching for her phone. Instead of heading to the airport, Russell drove to Nelson's security firm office. Together, they monitored the live feed from the house cameras. Riker arrived 30 minutes after Russell's departure. He and Vanessa wasted no time moving to the bedroom, Russell and Vanessa's bedroom. Nelson offered to mute the audio, but Russell refused. He needed to hear everything to understand the full measure of their contempt. Afterwards, they talked business. Their plans, laid bare for Russell to witness, were more advanced than he had realized. The divorce papers are ready, Vanessa said, lounging in the bed Russell had bought for their 15th anniversary. Once his signature is on them, half of everything is legally mine. What about the prenup? Riker asked, pouring himself a drink from Russell's bar. It only protects assets he had before the marriage, practically nothing. Everything valuable came after. And with California's community property laws, I get half of all our marital assets, including the Peterson account. Riker sounded eager. Especially that. 8 figures, Preston. More than enough to clear your debts and finish the Malibu house with millions to spare. Riker smiled, raising his glass. To new beginnings. When do we serve in the papers? After Lily's tuition payment clears next week. I've convinced him she needs the money transferred immediately. Once that's done, we move forward. And he suspects nothing. Vanessa laughed. Russell lives in spreadsheets and client portfolios. He hasn't really seen me in years. The conversation shifted to Lily, and Russell's grip tightened on his chair. She's still uncomfortable with the whole thing, Vanessa said. She loves her father. But she's on board, Riker insisted. Yes, the Malibu house sealed the deal. What 19-year-old wouldn't want a beachfront guest house? Besides, she knows which cider bread is buttered on. I've made it clear who'll be paying for grad school. Russell had seen enough. He signaled Nelson to continue monitoring while he processed what he'd learned. That evening, Russell parked down the street from his house, watching through binoculars as Riker finally left around midnight. 20 minutes later, his phone rang, Lily calling from Stanford. Dad, I thought you were fishing with Nelson. Change of plans, Russell replied evenly. How are you, sweetheart? Fine. Just checking in. Her voice held the same artificial brightness he'd noted before. Did you make that tuition payment? I'm handling it Monday. Russell paused. Is there anything you want to tell me, Lily? Anything at all? The silence stretched between them. No, she finally said. Why? Just making sure everything's good with you. I love you, you know. Love you too, Dad. Russell hung up and sat in silence, contemplating his next move. The betrayal was complete. Wife, daughter, all plotting behind his back. Decades of trust shattered. The following morning, Russell returned home as expected from his fishing trip. Vanessa greeted him with a practice kiss and asked about the weekend. Successful, he replied honestly. I caught exactly what I was looking for. Russell spent Sunday in his home office, ostensibly catching up on work. In reality, he was executing the first phase of his response to the betrayal. He moved assets, changed passwords, and prepared documentation. Monday morning, Russell left for work as usual. But instead of going to his office, he drove to Stanford. This time, he had no intention of watching from a distance. He found Lily coming out of her macroeconomics class. Her face registered shock when she saw him. Dad, what are you doing here? We need to talk. His tone left no room for argument. They walked to a secluded bench near the engineering building. Russell sat beside his daughter, studying her face, Vanessa's features but his eyes. The eyes that now couldn't quite meet his. Lily, I'm going to ask you one question, and I need you to tell me the truth. Russell kept his voice gentle despite the storm raging inside him. What do you know about your mother and Preston Riker? Lily's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, closed it, then stared at her hands. I know everything, Lily. The affair, the Malibu house, the divorce plans. What I don't understand is why my daughter, the person I trusted most in this world, would betray me too. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. Dad, it's not what you think. I heard you, Lily, Russell interrupted, his voice finally breaking. Yesterday, on the phone with your friend Emma. Lily looked confused. What are you talking about? Russell pulled out his phone and played the recording from one of Nelson's surveillance devices, captured the previous day while he was supposedly fishing. I froze in the hallway hearing my daughter's call. God, no, Emma. Dad suspects nothing. Mom's lover even drives me to school in Dad's car. My blood turned ice cold when she laughed. They've already bought the California house with Dad's retirement money once he finishes paying my tuition. That night, I drained every account, canceled all college payments, and slapped divorce papers on her pillow. Lily's face crumpled. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know what to do. Mom said if I didn't play along, she'd cut me off completely. No tuition, no support, nothing. And the Malibu guest house? Was that part of your payment for silence? She couldn't meet his eyes. Preston said I could live there after graduation. Design it myself since I'm studying architecture. I never wanted to hurt you, but the beach house was too tempting. Russell felt a coldness spreading through him. What about your tuition? Where has that money been going? Mom said she was investing it for me, for my future. I didn't know she was using it for the Malibu down payment until last week. Lily wiped her tears. What are you going to do? Russell stood, looking down at his daughter, this stranger wearing Lily's face. What am I going to do? I'm going to show you and your mother exactly who you've been underestimating all these years. Without another word, Russell walked away, leaving Lily calling after him. In his car, he made 3 calls, first to his attorney, then to his banker, and finally to Nelson. By dusk, Russell had set his plan in motion. As he drove home, he felt oddly calm. The shock and pain had crystallized into something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. A calculated determination to restore justice by any means necessary. When he arrived home, the house was quiet. Vanessa's car was in the driveway, but no lights were on. Russell entered silently, moving through the darkened house until he found her in the kitchen, drinking wine and texting. He stood in the doorway, watching her for a long moment before speaking. Hello, Vanessa. She jumped, nearly dropping her phone. Russell, you startled me. I didn't hear you come in. Clearly, he remained in the doorway. We need to talk. Can it wait until morning? I've had a long day. I'm sure you have. Russell stepped into the kitchen. Planning a new life must be exhausting. Vanessa's expression shifted, wariness replacing irritation. What are you talking about? Preston Riker, the Malibu house, divorce papers. Russell's voice remained eerily calm. Did I miss anything? The color drained from Vanessa's face. She gripped the counter for support. Russell, I can explain. No need. I understand perfectly. He placed a document folder on the kitchen island. These aren't the divorce papers you and Preston prepared. These are mine. My terms, my conditions. You can't just. I've already done it, Vanessa. Every account emptied. Your credit card's canceled. The tuition payment stopped. As of this afternoon, the Peterson account is in an irrevocable trust that neither you nor any divorce court can touch. Vanessa lunged for her phone, but Russell was faster. He held it out of reach. Preston can't help you now. No one can. Russell's eyes were glacial. You chose to destroy our family for a beachfront fantasy with a man drowning in debt. Now you can live with that choice, without my money to fund it. Vanessa's shock gave way to fury. You won't get away with this. California is a community property state. Half of everything is legally mine. Russell smiled, a cold expression that never reached his eyes. Check the prenup again. The infidelity clause you apparently forgot about. And as for community property, you'll need to find it first. He tossed her phone onto the counter and turned to leave. At the doorway, he paused, delivering the final blow. I spoke with Lily today. She told me everything. Another relationship you've poisoned with your greed. He looked back at his wife of 25 years, a stranger now. You have until tomorrow to pack your things and leave. The house keys, the car keys, everything stays. Vanessa's voice shook with rage and desperation. You think this is over? You have no idea what I'm capable of. Perhaps not, Russell conceded. But you're about to learn exactly what I'm capable of. And believe me, Vanessa, you won't like the lesson. With that, Russell walked upstairs to the guest bedroom, leaving his shattered marriage and the woman who had destroyed it behind him. Phase 1 of his response to betrayal was complete. The real retribution was just beginning. Chapter 4, Scorched Earth. By dawn, Russell had barely slept, but his mind was crystal clear. He showered and dressed in one of his best suits, armor for the battlefield he was about to enter. When he came downstairs, Vanessa was waiting in the kitchen, her expression a mixture of fury and calculation. You've made your point, she said, attempting a conciliatory tone. Let's discuss this reasonably. There's nothing to discuss. Russell prepared his coffee. Did you not understand me last night? You have until noon to leave. This is my house, too. Vanessa's facade cracked. You can't just throw me out. Actually, I can. Russell sipped his coffee. The house is owned by Donovan Family Trust, which I control as sole trustee. You're now an unwelcome guest. Noon, Vanessa. Her eyes narrowed. I've called Preston. He's contacting his attorney. You won't get away with hiding assets before a divorce. I'm not hiding anything. I'm protecting what's mine from thieves. Russell checked his watch. 10 hours remaining. I suggest you start packing. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She read the message, her face paling. What have you done to Preston's accounts? Nothing that wasn't already inevitable. His creditors just received some interesting information about his assets and upcoming income expectations. You bastard. Vanessa's voice trembled. You're destroying him. He tried to steal my life. Consider this a proportional response. Russell gathered his briefcase. I'll be at the office. If you're still here when I return, I'll have you removed. At his firm, Russell called an emergency meeting with his executive team. In concise terms, he explained that he was dealing with a personal situation that might have professional repercussions. My wife and I are separating under hostile circumstances, he told them. She may attempt to access company information or accounts. All security protocols are now at maximum. Any contact from Vanessa should be directed to me immediately. Byron, the firm's investigator, handed Russell a thick folder. Everything on Riker and the Foundation, as requested. The financial irregularities go deep. The Foundation's board will receive an anonymous tip about the misappropriation of funds by tomorrow. Thank you, Byron. Russell glanced at the material. Continue monitoring all communications. I want to know their next move before they make it. By noon, Russell received a text from Nelson, who was watching the house. Ice Queen departed with 6 suitcases and a lot of jewelry. Locks changed as instructed. Russell allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before focusing on Phase 2. Over the next 8 hours, he dismantled the financial web Vanessa and Preston had built. He contacted every financial institution where they held joint accounts, providing evidence of Vanessa's unauthorized transfers. He froze the assets of New Beginnings Holdings through an emergency injunction, citing fraud. He placed a lien on the Malibu property, effectively halting any further transaction. He submitted documentation to the IRS flagging potential tax evasion in Vanessa and Preston's property dealings. By evening, his phone was ringing constantly. Vanessa, Preston, unknown numbers likely belonging to their attorneys. Russell ignored them all. At 7 p.m., Lily called. Russell almost didn't answer, the wound of her betrayal still fresh. But something compelled him to accept the call. Dad, her voice was small, frightened. Mom's saying you've lost your mind, that you're destroying everything out of spite. Is that what she told you? Russell's tone remained neutral. Did she also mention using your tuition money for her beach house down payment? Silence, then a shaky breath. She said that was your fault for freezing the accounts. Lily, the tuition payment for this semester was due 2 months ago. I have bank records showing the money left our account, but never reached Stanford. Where do you think it went? More silence. I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe the evidence. Ask Stanford about your outstanding tuition balance. Ask yourself why your mother gave you a $12,000 Cartier bracelet last week when she supposedly couldn't pay your tuition. How did you? I know everything, Lily. Every call, every text, every promise they made you. Russell's voice finally betrayed his hurt. You chose a beachfront guest house over your father's trust. Dad, please. I have a meeting. We'll talk when you're ready to be honest. Russell ended the call, his hand shaking slightly. Betrayal by his wife was painful, but his daughter's duplicity cut far deeper. Russell worked late into the night, ensuring every defensive measure was in place. When he finally drove home to the empty house, exhaustion competed with a grim sense of accomplishment. Phase 2 was complete. The financial foundation of Vanessa and Preston's planned escape had been demolished. But Russell knew better than to underestimate them. Vanessa was nothing if not resourceful, and desperate people took desperate measures. The war was just beginning. At 2 a.m., Russell's security system alerted him to movement on the property. Checking the surveillance feed, he saw Preston's Porsche parked down the street and 2 figures approaching the back door. Russell calmly reached for his phone and called Nelson. "They've arrived, right on schedule," he said quietly. "Activate the security protocol." As Vanessa and Preston attempted to break in through the kitchen door, floodlights suddenly illuminated the entire backyard. An alarm blared and sprinklers erupted, soaking them both. From hidden speakers, Russell's recorded voice announced, "Security breach detected. Law enforcement has been notified. Facial recognition cameras active." The pair retreated in panic, stumbling across the now muddy lawn. Nelson's team captured everything on high-definition video from multiple angles. Russell watched their retreat on his security monitor, allowing himself a small smile. The night's events would prove useful in the battles to come. The next morning, Russell received a call from an unexpected source, Gerald Kincaid, the chairman of the Presidio Heights Preservation Foundation. "Russell, I've just received some very disturbing information about financial irregularities involving Preston Riker and potentially your wife. Would you be available to meet today?" "Of course, Gerald. My office at 2 p.m. The meeting confirmed what Russell already knew. Preston had been siphoning foundation funds for months, using fake contractors and inflated invoices. With Vanessa's help as event coordinator, they had diverted nearly $300,000 intended for historical preservation projects. "We're pursuing criminal charges," Gerald informed him gravely. "I wanted to speak with you first, given Vanessa's involvement." "I appreciate your courtesy, Gerald, but please proceed as you would with any other case of embezzlement. My wife's actions are her own responsibility." As Russell expected, the Foundation's investigation triggered a cascade of consequences. By nightfall, Preston Riker's name was leading local news broadcasts, his reputation in free fall as multiple financial improprieties came to light. Vanessa called repeatedly, her messages evolving from threats to desperate pleas. Russell listened to each one, unmoved. She had made her choice. Now she would face the consequences. Late that night, Russell received another call from Lily. Her voice was subdued, humbled. "Stanford Financial Office called me in today. They said my tuition hasn't been paid for this semester or last. They're threatening to withdraw me from classes." A pause. "Mom's not answering my calls." "I imagine she's quite busy," Russell replied evenly. "The Foundation is pursuing criminal charges against her and Preston for embezzlement." Lily gasped. "Criminal charges? Dad, you have to help her." "Why would I do that?" "Because she's my mother, your wife, the woman who stole from me, betrayed me, and manipulated you against me." Russell's voice remained calm. "No, Lily, I don't have to help her. She made her choices. So did you. What about my tuition? I'll lose everything if I'm withdrawn." Russell considered his response carefully. This was his daughter, despite her betrayal. "I'll make arrangements with Stanford tomorrow. Your education won't suffer for your mother's crimes." "Thank you," Lily whispered. Then, hesitantly, "Dad, I'm sorry. I never wanted." "We'll discuss it when you come home this weekend," Russell interrupted. "If you still want to be part of this family, be here Friday night." After hanging up, Russell sat in the darkness of his home office, surrounded by evidence of betrayal and the tools of his response. The house felt empty, hollowed out by deceit. But beneath the pain, A cold satisfaction was growing. Justice serve his way on his terms. Phase 3 would begin tomorrow, moving from defense to offense. Vanessa and Preston had tried to destroy his life. Now he would show them what destruction truly looked like. Chapter 5, Counterattack. The next morning brought the first counteroffensive from Vanessa and Preston. Russell received notice of an emergency court hearing. Vanessa's attorneys were seeking to unfreeze the marital assets and force Russell to provide spousal support pending divorce proceedings. Russell arrived at the courthouse impeccably dressed, his own legal team flanking him. Vanessa sat across the aisle, looking pale but defiant in a conservative outfit that screamed wronged wife. Preston was notably absent. Her attorney, Leona Bates, a shark in Chanel, presented their case persuasively. Your Honor, Mrs. Donovan has been summarily cut off from all financial resources by her husband's vindictive actions. She has no access to funds for basic living expenses, let alone legal representation in their divorce. Russell's attorney, Martin Walsh, rose calmly. Your Honor, before Mr. Donovan responds to these allegations, we request the court review this evidence. He distributed documentation showing Vanessa's unauthorized transfers, the misappropriated tuition payments, and bank records of her transactions with Preston Riker. Additionally, Walsh continued, Mrs. Donovan removed approximately $380,000 worth of jewelry and personal items from the marital home yesterday. Hardly the destitute picture painted by counsel. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed the materials with narrowed eyes. Ms. Bates, did you verify your client's claims before filing this emergency petition? Leona Bates shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, my client maintains that these transfers were made with her husband's knowledge for legitimate investment purposes. Investment in a Malibu beach house titled to an LLC she co-owns with her paramour? Walsh countered, while simultaneously plotting divorce. The evidence suggests not investment but theft. The judge studied both parties before delivering her ruling. The emergency petition is denied. Mrs. Donovan, this court takes a dim view of what appears to be significant financial misconduct. I'm ordering a forensic accounting of all marital assets before any further proceedings. And given the pending criminal investigation referenced in these documents, I suggest you focus on that matter first. Vanessa's face contorted with rage as the judge continued. Mr. Donovan, while I'm denying your wife's petition, I expect you to release reasonable funds for her basic living expenses. $5,000 per month should suffice until the forensic accounting is complete. Russell nodded respectfully. Of course, Your Honor. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa confronted him, her composure cracking. You think you've won? This is just starting. I'll take you for everything before we're done. Russell regarded her with detached curiosity, as if observing an unfamiliar species. You already tried that, Vanessa. How's it working out for you? You're destroying Preston's life. He's being investigated by 3 different agencies because of you. Because of me? Russell raised an eyebrow. I didn't embezzle from charity or use stolen money for a beach house. Those were your choices. Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice. What about Lily? Are you going to punish your own daughter too? I've arranged to pay Lily's tuition directly to Stanford. Unlike you, I don't use my child as leverage. Russell checked his watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a business to run. One you won't be getting half of, by the way. As Russell walked away, Vanessa called after him. This isn't over. You have no idea what's coming. Russell didn't turn around, but his mind was already calculating the next moves in this chess game of vengeance. Vanessa was right about one thing. This was far from over. Back at his office, Russell received a call from Byron. We've got a situation. Riker's attorney is claiming you used illegal surveillance to gather evidence against them. They're threatening criminal charges for invasion of privacy. An interesting strategy, Russell replied, unconcerned. Schedule a meeting with Walsh and the security team. Let's prepare our response. The meeting convened in Russell's conference room an hour later. Nelson's security expertise proved invaluable. All surveillance was conducted on your property with appropriate notifications, Nelson explained. The exterior cameras are clearly visible and marked with security signage, fulfilling disclosure requirements. The interior monitoring of common areas in your home is completely legal in California, especially given that you're the homeowner. Walsh nodded. They're fishing for leverage. I'll prepare a countersuit for defamation if they pursue this. Russell considered the situation. They're desperate. Preston's reputation is in tatters, his financial house of cards collapsing. What's his next move likely to be? Byron consulted his notes. Based on his pattern, he'll try to salvage what he can and run. He's done it before. After his last divorce, he disappeared in Mexico for 6 months, then re-emerged with a new business venture and a changed name. So he'll abandon Vanessa when she's no longer useful, Russell concluded. Interesting. Can we accelerate that outcome? Nelson leaned forward. I might have an idea. My team has been monitoring their communications. Riker is already showing signs of strain, blaming Vanessa for their current predicament. If we apply the right pressure, do it, Russell authorized. Whatever it takes to drive that wedge deeper. The strategy unfolded over the next 48 hours. Nelson's team strategically leaked information to Riker suggesting Vanessa was considering a deal with prosecutors to testify against him in the Foundation embezzlement case. Simultaneously, Vanessa received anonymous tips that Preston was planning to flee the country with what remained of their funds. By Friday morning, the trap had sprung. Preston Riker was arrested at San Francisco International Airport, attempting to board a flight to Costa Rica with $180,000 in cash in his carry-on. The money was quickly identified as part of the missing Foundation funds. Russell watched the news coverage with grim satisfaction. One opponent neutralized, but he knew Vanessa would be more resilient and potentially more dangerous than her partner. That evening, Lily arrived home from Stanford as instructed. She stood awkwardly in the foyer, looking younger and more vulnerable than her 19 years. Mom's been arrested, she said without preamble. Did you know that would happen? I suspected it might, Russell answered honestly. The evidence against her and Preston is substantial. Lily's eyes filled with tears. What happens now? To her? To us? Russell studied his daughter, seeing both the child he'd raised and the young woman who had betrayed him. That depends on a number of factors, including your mother's choices going forward. And yours. Mine. You participated in their deception, Lily. You knew about the affair, the stolen money, the plans to divorce me and take half of everything I've built. Russell's tone was not accusatory, but matter of fact. I need to understand why. Lily sank onto the stairs, her shoulders slumping. It was gradual. Mom started confiding in me last year. How unhappy she was, how you were never really present. Then she introduced me to Preston. He was charming, attentive. Everything she said you weren't anymore. And you believed her. She's my mother. Lily looked up, tears streaming down her face. She said if I didn't support her, I'd lose her forever. That she'd move to Malibu, and I'd be stuck with you. Then she started talking about my future, how Preston could help me get internships, connections in architecture. The guest house was just part of it. So you chose the side you thought would benefit you most, Russell observed. It wasn't like that. Lily protested. I was scared of losing her. And confused. She made it sound like you were the villain, cold, distant, controlling. And now? What do you think now? Lily wiped her tears. I don't know who to trust anymore. Everything's falling apart. Mom's in jail, my tuition wasn't paid, and you're like someone I don't even recognize. People reveal their true selves when betrayed, Russell said simply. Your mother and Preston showed who they really are. So did you. And yes, so did I. What happens to me now? Lily asked, her voice small. Russell sighed, feeling the weight of parenthood despite everything. You'll finish your education. I've arranged that with Stanford. Beyond that, rebuilding trust takes time and genuine effort. The choice is yours. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Russell received a call from an unknown number. It was Vanessa calling from jail. They're setting bail at $500,000, she said without greeting. I need you to post it. Why would I do that? Because despite everything, we were married for 25 years. Because I'm Lily's mother. Neither of those facts erases what you did, Russell replied evenly. You conspired to steal my money, destroy my life, and turn my daughter against me. Actions have consequences, Vanessa. I'll tell them everything, she threatened. How you spied on us, manipulated evidence, set Preston up. By all means, make those claims, Russell interrupted. It will only add perjury to your charges. A long silence followed. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice had lost its edge. What do you want, Russell? Everyone has a price. I want justice. Not the kind meted out in courtrooms, but real justice. Russell's voice hardened. You thought I was a pushover, a predictable, boring provider you could discard when convenient. You're learning otherwise. So this is revenge. I prefer to think of it as education. A costly lesson in the consequences of betrayal. Vanessa's voice trembled slightly. Will you at least tell Lily? I need to see her. That's her decision to make, not mine. Russell paused. Goodbye, Vanessa. He hung up, knowing this conversation would not be their last. Vanessa would continue fighting, using every weapon at her disposal. But with each passing day, her arsenal diminished while his grew stronger. Phase 3 was proceeding exactly as planned. The counterattack had succeeded beyond expectations. Now was time for the final phase, the complete dismantling of Vanessa's world, just as she had attempted to dismantle his. Chapter 6, The Depths. 2 weeks passed with Vanessa remaining in county jail, unable to make bail. Preston Riker had been released on bond, but with his assets frozen and his passport confiscated, he was effectively trapped. The criminal investigation into their financial misconduct had expanded to include tax evasion, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Russell maintained his normal routine, running his firm with his usual precision while advancing his plan. Each day brought new revelations, new leverage to use against those who had betrayed him. Byron's investigation had uncovered connections between Preston and several questionable business associates, with links to money laundering. This information, anonymously provided to federal investigators, had opened yet another line of inquiry. At home, Russell and Lily existed in an uneasy truce. She attended classes at Stanford during the week, returning to the house on weekends as required by Russell. Their conversations remained stilted, limited to practicalities. The trust between them was shattered, its reconstruction a slow, uncertain process. On a rainy Tuesday, Russell received an unexpected visitor at his office, Leona Bates, Vanessa's attorney. This is a courtesy call, she stated, declining his offer of a seat. My client is prepared to make a deal. Full divorce, no claims on your assets, in exchange for dropping all charges and providing a statement to help resolve her legal situation. Russell smiled faintly. Ms. Bates, your client faces multiple felony counts backed by substantial evidence. She attempted to steal millions from me while conducting an affair and conspiring with her lover to defraud a charitable foundation. What exactly am I supposed to gain from this deal? Leona's professional demeanor slipped slightly. A clean break. No protracted legal battles. The chance to move on with your life. I'm quite comfortable with my current trajectory. Thank you. Vanessa made her choices. Now she can live with the consequences. This vendetta isn't healthy, Mr. Donovan. For anyone involved, including your daughter. Russell's expression hardened. Spare me the psychological assessment. Counselor, you're representing a woman who would have happily destroyed my life without a second thought. Consider yourself fortunate I'm not including you in my response to that attempt. After Leona departed, Russell took a moment to center himself. The confrontation had stirred emotions he preferred to keep tightly controlled. Anger was useful only when channeled precisely, not when it clouded judgment. That evening, Russell received a text from Lily. Visited Mom today. She's in bad shape, begging me to convince you to help her. Russell didn't respond immediately. Instead, he poured himself 2 fingers of Macallan and reviewed his strategy. The vice was tightening around Vanessa and Preston. But as they grew more desperate, they became more unpredictable. Dangerous. His phone rang. Nelson, we've got movement. Riker met with some unsavory characters at a bar in Oakland. Money changed hands. My guy couldn't get close enough to hear the conversation, but it didn't look like a loan between friends. Russell considered this information. He's hiring muscle. Keep the surveillance tight and increase security at my home and office. Already done. You think they're desperate enough to try something physical? Riker is facing years in prison and financial ruin. Desperate doesn't begin to cover it. After hanging up, Russell finally responded to Lily's text. Your mother's situation is entirely self-inflicted. I'm not responsible for fixing it. Lily replied immediately. She says she'll tell me everything if you won't help her. All of it. A threat thinly veiled. Russell frowned. What could Vanessa possibly reveal that would matter now? Their marriage was over, her crimes exposed, her leverage gone. Unless Russell checked the secure safe in his home office, confirming that certain documents remained undisturbed. Records from his military service. Financial transactions from the early days of his firm. Information that, while not strictly illegal, could be damaging if presented without context. Vanessa knew about some of it. Pillow talk from early in their marriage, when trust had seemed unlimited and secrets shareable. Nothing that would land him in legal jeopardy, but material that could tarnish his reputation if weaponized effectively. Russell texted Lily back. Your mother is manipulating you again. Think about why she's offering this information now, and who it really serves. The following morning brought an unwelcome development. Russell's executive assistant handed him a printout of an online article from a local news blog. Financial advisor's revenge? Sources claim Russell Donovan's vendetta against a strange wife may hide darker secrets. The piece was thinly sourced and carefully worded to avoid outright libel. But the implications were clear. Russell's aggressive actions against Vanessa and Preston might be motivated by more than betrayal, perhaps by fear of what they could reveal about his own past. Byron appeared at Russell's door. We're tracing the source. Preliminary analysis suggests the anonymous insider quoted extensively is Vanessa herself. She must have access to a phone or computer in jail. Find out who's helping her, Russell ordered, and prepare a response to this hit piece. Already drafting a cease and desist letter. But Russell, Byron hesitated. Is there any truth to these insinuations? Anything I should know about to counter effectively? Russell met his investigator's gaze steadily. Nothing illegal. Some gray areas from the early days of building my business. Standard industry practices that look questionable to outsiders. Understood. We'll handle it. But the article was just the opening salvo. By afternoon, Russell's phone was buzzing with messages from colleagues, clients, and industry contacts, all expressing concern, offering support, or simply fishing for gossip. The Presidio Heights Preservation Foundation called to postpone a meeting about Russell potentially taking over as chairman. A major potential client emailed to delay signing their management agreement. The Whisper campaign was working, creating just enough doubt to cause hesitation. Russell maintained his composure, but inside, cold fury was building. Vanessa had crossed into new territory, attacking not just his marriage, but his professional reputation, the foundation of everything he had built. That evening, as Russell worked late in his office, the building's security system alerted him to an unauthorized entry attempt. Surveillance footage showed two men in maintenance uniforms try to access the executive floor outside normal hours. Russell immediately contacted Nelson, who dispatched a security team. The men fled before they could be apprehended, but their intentions seemed clear. This wasn't a robbery attempt, but something more targeted. When Russell finally returned home under security escort, he found Lily waiting in the living room. Mom called me again, she said without preamble. She's saying things about you, Dad. About your business practices, your military service, something about offshore accounts. Is any of it true? Russell studied his daughter's troubled face. Some of it contains elements of truth, twisted to sound sinister. Your mother is fighting for her life right now, Lily. She'll use any weapon available. What really happened between you two? Before all this? Lily's eyes pleaded for understanding. Were you always headed for this kind of ending? Russell sat heavily in his leather armchair, suddenly feeling the weight of the past weeks. Your mother and I had a good marriage once, but success changed both of us. I became more focused on building security for our family. She became more focused on the lifestyle that security provided. That doesn't explain her affair, or why she was willing to destroy you. People rationalized their worst behaviors. Lily, Vanessa convinced herself I didn't see her, didn't appreciate her sacrifices. Preston offered excitement, flattery, and a fantasy future. The money was just a means to that end. And now you're destroying them both, Lily observed quietly. They try to take everything from me, my money, my daughter, my reputation. Did you expect me to simply accept that and walk away? Lily was silent for a long moment. The man who's been showing up lately, cold, calculating, ruthless, is that the real you, Dad? Or is this what they turned you into? The question struck Russell with unexpected force. Who was he really? The steady, reliable provider? The strategic businessman? Or this avenging force dismantling his enemies? Perhaps it's all of me, he finally answered. Different facets revealed under different pressures. Later that night, alone in his study, Russell faced the truth Lily's question had exposed. The vengeance consuming him now was indeed satisfying, but at what cost? His relationship with his daughter hung by a thread. His professional reputation, previously unassailable, now faced scrutiny. The victory he sought might leave him with a hollow kingdom. Yet he couldn't stop now. Vanessa and Preston had escalated beyond financial betrayal to attacking his character, his business, potentially even his physical safety. Retreat wasn't an option. Russell opened his laptop and began typing, a comprehensive strategy for the final phase of his response. No more measured retaliation, no more gradual pressure. It was time to end this completely and definitively. For hours, he worked, mapping out a coordinated legal, financial, and informational campaign that would leave Vanessa and Preston with no resources, no reputation, and no future. Every vulnerability, every pressure point, every weakness would be exploited simultaneously and relentlessly. When he finally finished, the plan before him was both brilliant and terrible, a blueprint for absolute destruction that would leave nothing but ashes in its wake. Russell stared at the document, his finger hovering over the send button that would distribute the instructions to his team and set the final phase in motion. One click, and there would be no turning back. In that moment of hesitation, Russell confronted the man he had become, and the man he might yet be if he continued down this path of all-consuming vengeance. The choice he made would define not just the outcome of this battle, but the shape of his life moving forward. Chapter 7. The Precipice. Russell did not sleep that night. Instead, he sat in his darkened study, the comprehensive revenge plan still open on his laptop, unsent. The first light of dawn found him in the same position, contemplating not just his next move, but the endgame it would precipitate. At 6 a.m., his phone rang. Nelson, his voice tense. There's been an incident at Lily's dormitory. Someone broke into her room last night. She's unharmed, but shaken. Campus police are investigating. Russell's blood ran cold. Where is she now? Security has moved her to a hotel. My team is with her. This wasn't random, Russell. Her laptop was stolen, and her room was searched systematically. I'm on my way. Russell ended the call and moved with military efficiency, grabbing essentials and heading for his car. During the drive to Stanford, Russell's mind processed the implications. Vanessa and Preston had crossed a line he hadn't anticipated, involving Lily directly. Whether they sought information, leverage, or simply meant to send a message, they had made a catastrophic mistake. At the hotel, Lily ran to him as he entered the room, throwing her arms around him with a desperation that spoke volumes. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, Russell embraced his daughter fully, the protective instinct overriding all else. They took my laptop, she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. All my design projects, my thesis work, everything. We'll recover it, Russell assured her. Were you hurt? No, I was at the library when it happened. Lily pulled back, her expression troubled. Dad, they left something on my bed. A folder with your name on it. Russell tensed. What was in it? Papers about offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Transaction records. Something about consulting payments to military contractors. Lily's eyes searched his. The campus police have it now. They said they need to report it to financial authorities if it suggested illegal activity. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. By placing the documents in Lily's room and ensuring their discovery by law enforcement, Vanessa and Preston had initiated an investigation that Russell couldn't easily derail. "Did you read the documents?" Russell asked carefully. "Some of them. They didn't make much sense to me." Lily hesitated. "Are you in trouble, Dad?" Russell considered his response. The documents were likely authentic, records from the early days of his firm when he had structured certain transactions to maximize client returns through legal but complex offshore strategies. Nothing overtly illegal, but potentially damaging if presented without context. "Those records are from over 20 years ago, Lily. The transactions were legal, but could be misinterpreted without proper context." Russell's mind was already calculating countermeasures. "I need to make some calls." For the next hour, Russell coordinated with his legal team, while Nelson's security personnel swept the hotel room for surveillance devices and established a secure perimeter. "The documents were bait," Russell explained to Martin Walsh, his attorney. "They want to trigger regulatory scrutiny to distract me from their prosecution. Classic misdirection. I'll contact our connections at the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network," Walsh assured him. "We'll get ahead of this, frame the narrative properly." After establishing immediate countermeasures, Russell turned his attention back to Lily. She sat on the hotel bed, looking younger and more vulnerable than he'd seen her in years. "Why are they doing this?" she asked. "If they wanted to hurt you, why involve me?" "Because you're my weakness," Russell admitted. "The one area where I'm vulnerable. They know that. Even Mom. She put me at risk just to get back at you. Your mother is desperate, Lily. Desperate people justify unconscionable actions." Russell sat beside her. "This ends now. I'm taking you home where I can ensure your safety while I deal with this situation conclusively." Lily nodded, too shaken to argue. As they prepared to leave, Russell made a final call to Byron. "Execute Protocol Omega," he instructed cryptically. "Full spectrum, no reservations." Protocol Omega wasn't the destruction plan he drafted last night, but something more targeted yet equally devastating. It would neutralize Vanessa and Preston's ability to continue their attacks while providing Russell the legal and financial leverage to dictate terms. On the drive home, Russell maintained his composed exterior, but inside, cold fury had crystallized into something harder and more focused. The personal betrayal by Vanessa and Preston he could understand, even if he couldn't forgive it. But endangering Lily, using her as a pawn in their vendetta, that demanded a response beyond mere retaliation. At home, Russell established a secure environment. Nelson's team installed additional security measures, while Russell helped Lily settle into her old room. "What happens now?" she asked as Russell checked the reinforced window locks. "Now I end this," he replied simply. "Not with the scorched earth approach they've chosen." "What does that mean exactly?" Russell turned to face his daughter. "It means I offer them a choice, a negotiated surrender with terms they can live with, or complete annihilation. There's no third option." Lily studied her father, seeing clearly for the first time the steel beneath his controlled exterior. "You're scary when you're like this. Only to those who've earned it." Russell's phone buzzed, a text from Byron confirming that Protocol Omega was in motion. By evening, the initial results were evident. Preston Riker's bail had been revoked due to new evidence of witness tampering. Vanessa had been placed in solitary confinement after a guard discovered contraband communications devices in her cell. The blog that had published the hit piece against Russell issued a retraction and apology following a visit from Walsh's legal team. Most significantly, the offshore documents from Lily's room had been intercepted and contained within the Stanford Campus Police Department, with federal authorities confirming they saw no immediate cause for investigation given the age and nature of the transactions. Russell monitored these developments from his home office, Lily asleep upstairs under the watchful eye of Nelson's security team. Each report confirmed what he already knew. With sufficient resources and determination, almost any attack could be neutralized. As midnight approached, Russell received a call from an unknown number. "You've made your point," Preston Riker said without introduction, his voice strained. "This has gone too far." "On that, we agree," Russell replied coldly. "Breaking into my daughter's room crossed a line you can't uncross." That wasn't me. Vanessa arranged it through one of her jail contacts. I told her it was insanity. Yet you benefited from it. Or tried to. Look, we need to end this before someone gets really hurt. She's not thinking clearly. She's obsessed with destroying you, even if it means going down herself. Russell considered this assessment. It aligned with his own understanding of Vanessa's psychology. Once committed to a course of action, she would pursue it to the bitter end, regardless of the cost. What exactly are you proposing? Russell asked. A truce. I'll provide evidence that Vanessa was the mastermind behind everything. The embezzlement, the plot against you, all of it. In exchange, you help me make a deal with prosecutors. Throwing her under the bus to save yourself. Charming. It's survival. Preston's voice hardened. And it's the truth. This whole scheme was her idea from the beginning. I was just the patsy who fell for her act, just like you did 25 years ago. Russell absorbed this, sensing manipulation, but also potentially useful information. I'll consider it. No promises. Don't wait too long. Vanessa has more moves planned, and they make what happened at Stanford look like a warm-up. After the call ended, Russell sat motionless, processing this new information. Was Preston telling the truth about Vanessa being the true architect of their scheme? It aligned with her intelligence and strategic thinking, but also conveniently absolved Preston of primary responsibility. More concerning was the warning about Vanessa's continued plans. If breaking into Lily's room was just a preliminary move, what else might she be capable of? Russell opened his laptop and reviewed the comprehensive destruction plan he drafted the previous night. It would end the threat Vanessa and Preston posed permanently. But at what cost? The collateral damage would be extensive, affecting innocent people in their orbit, potentially including Lily. There had to be another way, one that neutralized the threat while allowing Russell to preserve what mattered most. A new approach began to form in his mind. Not the surgical of Protocol Omega, nor the total annihilation of his original plan. Something more elegant, using Vanessa and Preston's own motivations, fears, and ambitions against them. Russell worked through the night, drafting a new strategy. By dawn, he had created something that wasn't just a plan for victory, but a pathway to resolution. A means to end the conflict on his terms while allowing him to move forward unburdened by the need for endless vigilance. As the sun rose, Russell sent a single text to Martin Walsh. Set meeting with opposing counsel. 2 p.m. today. Terms to follow. The game was entering its final phase. Russell would offer Vanessa and Preston a choice. Not between surrender and destruction, but between two different kinds of endings. Either way, he would emerge victorious. The only question was how much of themselves they would salvage from the wreckage of their failed scheme. Chapter 8. Checkmate. At precisely 2 p.m., Russell sat at the head of the conference table in Martin Walsh's office, his expression impassive as the door opened to admit Leona Bates and a haggard Preston Riker. Vanessa, still in custody, was absent but represented by Bates. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Walsh began formally. My client has a proposal to resolve our current situations. Leona Bates maintained her professional demeanor, though the strain showed around her eyes. We're listening, though I should note that this meeting doesn't constitute an admission of wrongdoing by either of my clients. Russell allowed himself a small smile. Let's dispense with the legal fictions, Ms. Bates. Your clients attempted to defraud me of millions, conspired to steal my retirement funds, and most recently, endangered my daughter in a misguided attempt to distract from their own crimes. Preston shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. You've requested this meeting, Bates countered. I assume you have something constructive to offer beyond accusations. Indeed. Russell opened a folder and slid identical documents to each person at the table. These are the terms under which I'm willing to end this conflict. As they read, Russell observed their reactions. Bates maintained her poker face, but Preston's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally, calculation. The proposal was straightforward. Vanessa would agree to a divorce on Russell's terms, relinquishing all claims to marital assets except for a lump sum of $500,000, enough to start over modestly, but not the millions she had hoped to secure. Preston would provide comprehensive evidence of the foundation embezzlement, taking primary responsibility in exchange for Russell's influence in securing a reduced sentence. Both would sign legally binding non-disclosure agreements regarding Russell's personal and professional affairs, with catastrophic financial penalties for violations. In return, Russell would withdraw certain evidence from the criminal proceedings, potentially reducing their legal exposure from multiple felonies to lesser charges. Most critically, they would permanently sever all contact with Lily unless specifically initiated by her. "This is extortion," Bates declared after reading the terms. "You're using your financial power to dictate legal outcomes." "I prefer to think of it as offering a lifeline to two drowning people," Russell replied evenly. "The alternative is that I continue providing evidence to prosecutors while pursuing civil damages that will ensure both your clients spend their remaining years in financial ruin and quite possibly prison." Preston leaned forward. "What guarantee do we have that you'll keep your end if we provide what you want?" "The documents include escrow arrangements. My actions are contingent on yours, verified by independent third parties." Russell met Preston's gaze steadily. "Unlike you, I honor my agreements." Preston flinched at the barb, but continued. "What about Vanessa? She's not here to agree to this. You have power of attorney for joint legal decisions, do you not? That arrangement proved quite useful when you were planning to steal my money. It should work equally well for accepting these terms." Bates intervened. "We'll need time to review this with Ms. Donovan and consider our options." "You have 24 hours, Russell stated flatly. "After that, my alternate plan goes into effect. I don't think you'll prefer it." "Is that a threat?" Bates challenged. "It's a schedule." Russell stood, signaling the end of the meeting. 24 hours. Back in his car, Russell received a call from Nelson. "Surveillance confirms Riker called someone from the law office bathroom immediately after your meeting. Not Vanessa. His contact was masculine, spoke with a faint accent. They've arranged to meet tonight at the Oakland Marina." "Interesting." Russell processed this information. "Maintain surveillance. I want to know who he's meeting and what they discuss." "You got it." Also, Byron found something on Vanessa's visitor logs. She's been receiving regular visits from someone using credentials from the Chronicle. Not an actual reporter. We checked. "Another piece of the puzzle," Russell mused. "Keep Lily secure. I have a feeling things will accelerate from here." That evening, Russell sat with Lily in their living room, sharing a rare moment of normalcy as they ate takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. The tension between them had eased somewhat in the wake of the dorm room break-in, shared danger creating a tentative bridge over the chasm of betrayal. "I spoke with Mom today," Lily said, setting down her fork. "They let me visit her at the detention center." Russell kept his expression neutral. "How did that go?" "She's different. Harder somehow. She spent most of the time trying to convince me you're the villain in all this." Lily met his gaze directly. "She said there are things about you I don't know. Things that would make me see this situation differently." "Did you believe her?" Lily considered the question carefully. "A week ago, maybe, but after what happened at Stanford." She shook her head. "She didn't even ask if I was okay. Just wanted to know what documents were taken from my room and whether the police were investigating them." Russell absorbed this, feeling a complex mixture of vindication and sadness. "People show you who they really are in crisis, Lily. Remember that lesson. What happens after all this? To her? To us?" Lily gestured vaguely between herself and Russell. "That depends partly on decisions being made in the next 24 hours. Russell's phone buzzed with a text from Nelson. Meeting confirmed. Riker with unknown male, 40s, Eastern European. Cash exchanged. Details following. "Dad, you went somewhere else just now." Russell refocused on his daughter. "Sorry, work matter. As for what happens next, Vanessa and Preston have a choice to make. Their decision will determine much of what follows. And us? Do we have a choice too?" "We always have choices, Lily. Some harder than others." Russell hesitated, then continued with uncharacteristic openness. "I won't pretend the betrayal didn't hurt. It did deeply. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal easily. But you're my daughter. That hasn't changed." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I got caught up in Mom's version of reality. The fancy future she painted, the excitement of being part of their secret. I never stopped to think about what it was doing to you. We moved forward, Russell said simply. One day at a time. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Russell received the detailed report from Nelson. Riker had met with a man identified as Anton Kozlov, a known associate of a private security firm with a reputation for operating in legal gray areas. The cash exchange, approximately $50,000 based on the size of the package, suggested a significant operation was being planned. Russell immediately initiated countermeasures, instructing Nelson's team to maintain round-the-clock security while Byron accelerated the background investigation into Kozlov and his associates. At 10 a.m. the next morning, Russell received a call from Martin Walsh. Bates reached out. They want to meet again, just you and Riker, no attorneys. He claims to have information you'll want to hear before making any decisions. When and where? Noon today. The boathouse at Golden Gate Park. Neutral ground. Russell considered the request. It's a trap of some kind, likely designed to eliminate me from the equation or secure leverage. Almost certainly, Walsh agreed. I strongly advise against going. Set it up anyway. I'll handle the security arrangements. Despite Walsh's objections, Russell prepared for the meeting. He worked with Nelson to establish surveillance coverage of the boathouse and surrounding areas, positioning security personnel at strategic points. Russell himself wore a concealed recording device and carried a specially modified phone that would broadcast his location and surroundings to Nelson's team in real time. At noon precisely, Russell approached the boathouse, alert to any sign of ambush. Preston Riker waited alone on a bench overlooking the lake, his appearance markedly deteriorated since yesterday's meeting. His designer clothes hung loosely on his frame, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Thank you for coming," Riker said as Russell sat beside him, maintaining a careful distance. "I know you have no reason to trust me." "None whatsoever," Russell agreed calmly. "Yet here we are." Riker glanced around nervously before speaking. "Your offer yesterday, I want to take it. Vanessa doesn't. She's gone somewhere I can't follow." "Explain." "She's hired people. Dangerous people. Not just to pressure you or gather information anymore." Riker's voice dropped. "She wants you eliminated, Russell. Permanently." Russell showed no reaction, though the confirmation of his suspicions sent a cold chill through him. "And you're telling me this out of the goodness of your heart?" "Self-preservation. I never signed up for murder. Financial manipulation, sure. Divorce schemes, fine. But this," Riker shook his head. "I draw the line at violence." "Noble of you." Russell's tone made clear his skepticism. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I'll give you everything. Recordings of our conversations planning the financial scheme, documentation of the Foundation embezzlement, evidence of her communication with Kozlov's team. Enough to put her away for decades." Riker leaned forward. "In exchange, I'll walk away with the deal you offered yesterday. Freedom, a reduced sentence, and enough of a future to rebuild something from the ashes." Russell studied the man who had seduced his wife, plotted to steal his money, and participated in endangering his daughter. Pathetic now, desperate, but still calculating angles and opportunities. "You betray Vanessa completely. Like she betrayed me by escalating this to murder without my knowledge or consent." Riker laughed bitterly. This was supposed to be a simple financial score. Meet bored, wealthy wife. Seduce her. Convince her to divorce rich husband and share the spoils. I never intended for it to become this vendetta. Russell considered his options carefully. Riker was undoubtedly manipulating the situation to his advantage, but his information about Vanessa's plans aligned with Nelson's intelligence. The threat was real, regardless of Riker's motivations for revealing it. "If I accept your offer, I need everything immediately. Not promises, not future deliverables. Everything today. Done." Riker reached slowly into his jacket, telegraphing his movements to avoid alarming Russell. He withdrew a USB drive. "It's all here. Encrypted, but I'll provide the key once we have a formal agreement." As Russell reached for the drive, movement at the periphery of his vision alerted him. A man was approaching rapidly from behind Riker, hand reaching inside his jacket. "Down!" Russell shouted, lunging forward and tackling Riker as a muffled shot rang out. They tumbled behind the bench as Nelson's security team converged on the shooter. Chaos erupted briefly, then controlled professional activity as the would-be assassin was subdued. Russell rose cautiously, noting the blood spreading across Riker's shoulder. "You saved my life," Riker gasped, clutching his wound. "Why?" Russell didn't answer immediately, watching as Nelson's team secured the area and summoned medical assistance. The shooter was face down on the ground, zip-tied and under guard. "Consider it a down payment on our agreement," Russell finally replied. "Assuming that USB contains what you claim." Within hours, the situation had transformed dramatically. Riker, treated for a bullet graze at a private medical facility, had provided the encryption key for the USB drive. The contents were exactly as promised. Comprehensive documentation of Vanessa's orchestration of the entire scheme, from the initial seduction to the foundation embezzlement to the recent escalation to violence. Most damning were recorded conversations between Vanessa and Anton Kozlov, discussing payment terms for permanent solutions to her Russell problem. The timestamps showed these conversations occurring while she was in custody, suggesting significant corruption within the detention facility. Russell provided this evidence to authorities, triggering immediate action. Vanessa was transferred to a higher security facility under enhanced monitoring. Kozlov and 3 associates were arrested while conducting surveillance of Russell's home. The detention center guard who had facilitated Vanessa's unauthorized communications was suspended pending investigation. By evening, Russell sat in his study reviewing the preliminary legal assessment from Walsh's team. Vanessa now faced additional charges of conspiracy to commit murder, with the possibility of decades in prison. Riker, while still facing significant legal jeopardy, had positioned himself for a much-reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation. The immediate danger had passed, but Russell felt no satisfaction in the victory. Instead, a profound weariness settled over him as he contemplated the wreckage of his former life. His marriage was destroyed, his daughter traumatized, his sense of security fundamentally altered. Even in triumph, the cost seemed almost too high to bear. Lily appeared in the doorway, her expression solemn. "Nelson told me what happened today. You could have been killed, but I wasn't." Russell managed a tired smile. "And now the worst is over." "Was it Mom? Who sent that man to shoot at you?" Russell hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. She's crossed lines I never imagined possible." Lily sank into the chair opposite his desk. "I keep thinking there must have been signs. Ways I could have seen what she was becoming." "We see what we expect to see, Lily. I miss the signs too." Russell closed the legal documents. "But that's over now. We move forward. What happens to her? To Preston? They face the consequences of their actions. The legal system will determine the specifics." Russell studied his daughter's face. "Are you ready for that? For what it means?" Lily nodded slowly. "I think so. I've been talking to a therapist at school. She says I need to separate my love for Mom from her actions. To understand that loving someone doesn't mean excusing what they've done." Wise advice. Russell hesitated, then continued. "I want you to know something, Lily. Through all of this, the betrayal, the schemes, even today's violence, my priority has always been protecting you. Everything else was secondary. I know that now." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I just wish I'd seen it sooner." As night fell, Russell received final confirmation from Walsh that all legal mechanisms were in place. The agreement with Riker was formalized, Vanessa's new charges were filed, and the protective measures for Russell and Lily were established on a long-term basis. The immediate battle was won. The war was effectively over. Yet as Russell stood at his office window, looking out at the San Francisco skyline, he wondered about the true nature of victory. He had overcome those who sought to destroy him, but at what cost to his own humanity? The cold, calculating strategist who had orchestrated this counteroffensive was a side of himself he had never fully acknowledged before. The question now was whether that aspect of his personality would recede once the threat was neutralized, or whether it had permanently altered his character. Only time would tell if Russell Donovan, having survived betrayal and emerged victorious, could find his way back to something resembling peace. Chapter 9. Aftermath. 6 months passed, bringing autumn to San Francisco and a new rhythm to Russell's life. The legal proceedings against Vanessa and Preston had progressed with inevitability, their outcomes no longer in doubt, but merely awaiting formal confirmation. Preston Riker had received a 5-year sentence, eligible for parole in 3, in exchange for his comprehensive testimony against Vanessa. The Foundation had recovered most of its embezzled funds through asset seizures, and Preston's cooperation had been noted favorably by the judge. Vanessa's case had taken longer, complicated by the additional charges of conspiracy to commit murder. Her trial was scheduled for the following month, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. Prosecutors anticipated a sentence of 15 to 20 years. Russell had maintained his distance from both proceedings, providing necessary testimony, but otherwise focusing on rebuilding his life and his relationship with Lily. The media interest had gradually faded as newer scandals captured public attention, allowing them precious privacy. On a crisp October Saturday, Russell sat on the deck of his new home in Sausalito, overlooking the bay. The Tudor mansion in Presidio Heights had been sold, too laden with memories to retain. This modern glass and steel structure, smaller but with spectacular views, represented his fresh start. Lily emerged from the house, carrying 2 cups of coffee. At 20, she had matured visibly through the ordeal, her face showing a new seriousness that occasionally made Russell's heart ache for the carefree girl she had been. "Dad, I got a letter from Mom yesterday," she said without preamble, handing him one of the cups. Russell accepted the coffee, his expression carefully neutral. What did she want? To apologize, supposedly. Lily settled into the adjacent chair. 4 pages about how she never meant for things to go so far, how Preston manipulated her, how her actions were driven by depression and feeling undervalued in the marriage. And do you believe her? Lily considered the question. Parts of it rang true. The feeling undervalued part, maybe, but the rest. She shook her head. I've heard the recordings, seen the evidence. She was the architect, not the victim. Russell nodded, relieved by his daughter's clear-eyed assessment. The months of therapy had helped her develop a healthier perspective on her mother's actions. Did she ask for anything? He inquired, already anticipating the answer. She want me to speak at her sentencing. Character witness. Lily's mouth twisted in a wry smile. Apparently having her daughter plead for leniency might sway the judge. And will you? No. Lily's response was immediate and firm. I'm done being her pawn. I told my therapist about the letter, and she helped me draft a response. I explained that I need distance, and that involving me in her legal strategy is exactly the kind of manipulation I'm trying to heal from. Pride warmed Russell's chest. That sounds like a healthy boundary. It wasn't easy, Lily admitted. Part of me still loves her. Probably always will. But loving her doesn't mean participating in her schemes or excusing what she did. They sat in companionable silence, watching sailboats crisscross the bay. The wounds remained, but they were healing, scabbed over with time and honest communication. I've been thinking about changing my major, Lily said eventually. Architecture is interesting, but what I really want to do is psychology. Maybe help people who've experienced family trauma. If that's your passion, I support it completely. Russell smiled. Stanford has an excellent psychology department. I know. I've already talked to my advisor about transferring. Lily hesitated. There's something else. I've been thinking about changing my name legally. Not my last name, she added quickly, seeing his expression. Just my first name. Lily feels like the person I was in the old life. I want something that represents who I'm becoming. What name are you considering? Sophia. It means wisdom. She looked at him uncertainly. What do you think? Sophia Donovan. Russell tested the name. It has strength. If it represents who you feel you are becoming, then I think it's perfect. Later that afternoon, Russell met with Nelson at his security firm's headquarters. Their relationship had evolved from client and contractor to genuine friendship, forged in the crucible of crisis. The last of Kozlov's associates has been arrested, Nelson reported, sliding a file across his desk. Italian authorities picked him up in Milan yesterday. The entire network has been dismantled. Good. Russell scanned the document. Any indication of further threats? None. Your ex-wife remains in isolation with monitored communications only. Riker is focused on being a model prisoner to maximize his chances for early parole. The threat assessment is at its lowest level since this all began. Russell nodded, feeling a weight lift that he hadn't fully acknowledged was still there. Then I think we can scale back the security protocols. Lily, Sophia now, deserves as normal a college experience as possible. Sophia? Nelson raised an eyebrow. Her choice. New name, new chapter. Russell closed the file. Speaking of new chapters, I've been considering your offer. Nelson leaned forward with interest. The security consulting position? I thought you were happy running your firm. I am. But recent events have shown me the value of your expertise. The partnership makes sense. My financial acumen, your security knowledge. We could offer high-net-worth clients comprehensive protection for both their assets and their personal safety. A niche market with significant growth potential. Nelson agreed, business instincts engaging. When would you want to start? January. New year, new venture. Russell stood, extending his hand. Draft the partnership agreement. I'll review it next week. That evening, Russell received an unexpected call. Martin Walsh, his attorney. I thought you want to know immediately. Walsh began without greeting. Vanessa has offered a full guilty plea in exchange for a reduced sentence. Russell paused, surprised despite himself. Why now? The evidence against her is overwhelming, but her attorneys were still preparing a vigorous defense. That's the interesting part. She's not contesting any of the charges: financial fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit murder, all of it. In exchange, she's asking for a 20-year sentence with possibility of parole after 15. What's the catch? Russell asked, inherently suspicious of any concession from Vanessa. No catch, apparently. The DA's office is inclined to accept. It saves the state a costly trial, and 20 years is within the expected sentencing range anyway. Walsh paused. There is one unusual condition. She wants a 1-hour meeting with you before she enters the plea formally. Russell's instincts immediately triggered warning signals. Absolutely not. Whatever game she's playing, I'm not participating. I advised the DA's office you'd say exactly that. But they asked me to convey that the meeting would be fully monitored in a secure facility with guards present throughout. Her attorneys claim she wants to offer some form of closure. Closure, Russell repeated skeptically. More likely a final attempt at manipulation. Almost certainly, Walsh agreed. But consider this. If she's going away for 20 years, hearing whatever she has to say costs you an hour, but potentially provides insight that might help you and your daughter move forward. Russell considered this perspective. I'll think about it. No promises. After ending the call, Russell walked the perimeter of his deck, watching lights shimmer on the bay as he contemplated Walsh's suggestion. Part of him wanted nothing more to do with Vanessa, to leave her in the past where she belonged. But another part recognized that true resolution might require one final confrontation, a chance to understand, if not forgive. 3 days later, Russell sat in a sterile visitation room at the detention facility, waiting. The security protocols were extensive: metal detectors, pat-downs, multiple locked doors. No chances were being taken with a woman who had already attempted to arrange a murder. When Vanessa entered, Russell was struck by how much she had changed. Her designer clothes were replaced by a standard-issue jumpsuit, her carefully maintained appearance now utilitarian. Yet she carried herself with the same pride, chin lifted defiantly despite the circumstances. "Thank you for coming," she said, taking the seat opposite him. The table between them was bolted to the floor, the distance carefully calibrated to prevent physical contact. "I'm not here for your benefit," Russell replied evenly. "I'm here for answers." "Fair enough." Vanessa studied him, her gaze still shrewd despite everything. "You look well. Success suits you. Let's dispense with pleasantries. You wanted this meeting." "What?" Vanessa sighed, some of her composure slipping. "Contrary to what you might believe, I didn't plan for things to end this way. The original scheme was simple. Divorce you. Take half. Start over with Preston. No violence, no elaborate revenge plots. Yet here we are. Russell's tone remained neutral. You escalated to attempted murder. After you destroyed everything. For a moment, the old Vanessa flashed in her eyes, entitled, indignant. Then she visibly reined herself in. But that's not why I asked you here. Assigning blame is pointless now. Then what is the point? Lily, Vanessa leaned forward. I want you to tell her something for me, since she won't accept my letters anymore. Russell tensed. I'm not your messenger. Please, just this once. Something in Vanessa's voice, a vulnerability Russell had rarely heard, made him hesitate. What's the message? Tell her I'm not contesting anything, not making excuses, not blaming others. Tell her I accept full responsibility for my choices and their consequences. Vanessa's eyes glistened. And tell her that despite everything, my love for her was never part of the deception. It's the one true thing in this whole sordid mess. Russell studied his former wife, trying to gauge her sincerity. Why should I believe that? You used her as a pawn. You endangered her to get to me. Because mothers and monsters aren't mutually exclusive categories, Russell. Vanessa's smile held no humor. I can love my daughter genuinely while still being capable of terrible decisions that hurt her. Human complexity, something your black and white worldview never fully grasped. Russell absorbed this, recognizing an uncomfortable truth in her words. I'll consider telling her. No promises. Thank you. Vanessa straightened. There's one other thing. Not a request. Information. Something you should know for your own protection. Russell's guard instantly rose. Go on. Preston isn't as defeated as he appears. He's maintained outside connections, preserved resources you haven't discovered. He blames you for everything. The failed scheme, his imprisonment, all of it. Why are you telling me this? Vanessa shrugged. Self-interest, partly. I've accepted my fate. 20 years, potentially 15 with good behavior. At my age, that's a significant portion of my remaining life. If Preston's schemes cause additional investigations, my situation could worsen. And the other part? Russell pressed. Perhaps a small redemptive gesture. Insignificant against the balance of my actions, but something. Vanessa met his gaze directly. Despite everything, Russell, I did love you once. Before ambition and resentment corrupted it. Russell stood, signaling the end of their conversation. Goodbye, Vanessa. As he turned to leave, her voice followed him. One last thing. Lily, she's changing her name, isn't she? Becoming someone new. Russell paused, surprised. How did you know? Because it's what I would do in her position. Reinvention was always my specialty. Vanessa's smile held genuine sadness. Tell Sophia I wish her well with her new beginning. The guards escorted Russell out, through the multiple security checkpoints, and finally into the clear autumn air. He stood in the parking lot, processing the interaction. Vanessa remained manipulative to the end, yet the warning about Preston seemed genuine, as did her message for Lily, Sophia. That evening, Russell shared portions of the conversation with his daughter, including Vanessa's acknowledgement of responsibility and her message of love. Do you think she meant it? Sophia asked, her expression troubled. About accepting responsibility? I think she's accepted the inevitability of consequences, Russell replied carefully. Whether that constitutes genuine remorse is harder to determine. Sophia nodded, absorbing this. And what about her warning about Preston? That I'm taking seriously. Nelson is already investigating. Russell hesitated, then added, she knew about your name change. Somehow she sensed you'd make that choice. Because we're similar in some ways, Sophia acknowledged, her voice steady. I can recognize that without following her path. A week later, Russell received confirmation from Walsh that Vanessa had entered her guilty plea as agreed. The judge had accepted the recommended 20-year sentence. One chapter was officially closed. Preston Riker remained a loose end, but Nelson's investigation had already identified 2 offshore accounts and a series of communications with former business associates conducted through an elaborate system of prison intermediaries. Additional charges were pending, likely to extend his sentence significantly. As winter approached, Russell found himself increasingly at peace with the new shape of his life. The wealth management firm continued to thrive under his leadership. The security partnership with Nelson was taking form, with promising interest from initial client outreach. Sophia was flourishing at Stanford, her psychology studies igniting a passion that architecture never had. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had instead forced a transformation, revealing strengths he hadn't known he possessed and vulnerabilities he needed to acknowledge. The vengeful strategist who had emerged in crisis had receded, not vanishing entirely, but integrating into a more complete version of himself. On New Year's Eve, Russell hosted a small gathering at his Sausalito home. Sophia home from Stanford, Nelson and his wife, a few close colleagues who had stood by him through the ordeal. As midnight approached, they gathered on the deck despite the chill, champagne glasses in hand. A toast, Russell proposed, raising his glass. To endings that enable new beginnings. To justice that brings not just retribution, but restoration. And to the truth that sometimes our greatest strengths emerge from our deepest wounds. As the final seconds of the old year ticked away, Russell contemplated the journey that had brought him here. The betrayal had nearly broken him. But in surviving it, in refusing to be defined by victimhood or consumed by vengeance, he had found a resilience he never knew he possessed. The new year arrived with promise and possibility. The price of betrayal had been paid in full by all involved. Now it was time to build something new from the hard-won wisdom of that costly education. Sophia touched her glass to his. "To the future, Dad." "To the future," Russell agreed, embracing both the uncertainty and the opportunity it held. "On our own terms." And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.